Shayna Craig, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Likewise. It was great that you saw what we were up to on the channel and thought that to comment, to reach out, and then we looked at your content, we got excited and sent you a message. And
so synergistic the way that those moments happen. I was in a good mood watching it, and usually I don't leave comments. I just enjoy things, even if I enjoy what I'm watching. And it was just deeper, and I was just feeling good. And it's kind of like being on the street too, when you see someone and you like, oh, I like that ring, or I like the shirt that they're wearing, and most people kind of just keep those comments to themselves. But those are the kind of comments that should be shared. It's very, very interesting, the temperature of the social space right now, because people are more used to sharing comments that are negative about something, what they don't like, or so I was enjoying it and wanted to express that and transmit that to you, so that you guys knew what you were doing and that it was appreciated.
Thank you. That's so crucial. We have this ethos that we've been sharing, that if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. And in the sense, try and find something nice to say as much as you can, because you're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And metaphysically, that's why the idea of Wu Wei or effortless action or channeling God consciousness or Christ consciousness or any of these high level spiritual leaders that have been here teaching us how to behave at the highest levels of morality, they're all telling you that you are talking to yourself. There is only one thing happening, and that's infinity expressing itself. So if you leave a negative comment to somebody, you're talking to yourself, another expression of yourself.
Yeah, where it's mirrors. So it's how you talk to yourself in the mirror, how you go out and how you express yourself in digital space, in all these different spaces. It's all just looking into the mirror.
Yep. And by the way, whenever you get a comment or give a comment that is loving and kind, like a video, give a loving, kind comment, receive a loving, kind comment, that, like you described, when you're on the street and that something really resonates with you and you say that that's a beautiful hair color you have, I really like the color of your eyes, love those shoes that you're wearing, that shirt has a really profound message on it. The more that you say that, the more that you're spreading the love that all of these spiritual leaders talked about also.
Yeah, and it's that easy. It's that easy. Yeah. It's not something that has to be a grand gesture of love, but love is every moment to moment expression, that even just smiling. Exactly. I play a game. I'm from New York City, and on the streets, I'll be walking down the street and try to count how many people are actually either smiling naturally or smiling back at me. Yep. So I'll just smile. And a lot of the time I'll get a reaction of the opposite effect, where it's like something is off with her. Like, why is she smiling? Yeah. And like, I'm going to give her a reason not to. So like, I want to take it away from her. But
I want to be in my straitjacket in the economic machinery.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a way of recognizing, attuning in others to see where they're at and how they respond and how quickly they're able to tune to you, or you tuning to them. Like that if you succumb to the like negative comments or the people trying to take the smiles away from you,
it's vibration.
You'll see that you match to them, and your like tuned is weakened, and it's like, oh, you might be having a bad day, and that's why it's good to appreciate the things that you do and what you do on your channel, and to show the appreciation because then it can flip and totally transform your own energy to make it a good day.
Yeah, people are constantly leaving comments that from different places around the world that are talking about the content reaching them, which is great. Love the platform's reach, which is awesome.
Yeah, we live in a great time. We live in such a wonderful time to have the ability to reach so many people in such a quick amount, in such a quick way.
Yep.
And people used to say to me, "Oh, you're born in the wrong time. You're like a hippie child. You should have been born in the 70s." And it's like, no, I can still be a hippie child now and bring those things with me into the age of how we have computers in our hands at all times, and that's beneficial for connecting quickly and in ways we couldn't do before.
Super double-edged, yeah. If you notice the subtlety of when that opening is present for the flow state to continue versus when the hesitancy comes, it's like that rumination that's like, should I say this, should I not? If you stay with the flow, which is to make the compliment, then that's when we burst out of the bubbles of like hesitation and uncomfortability, and we become more comfortable with what's uncomfortable, and that helps us grow.
Yeah, it peels off that filter of not needing to know that you're saying or doing the right thing. And even if it's, let's say it comes out in a negative way or it's perceived in a way you didn't expect, that's an experience. It becomes an experience. Everything is an experience. So to be in fear of your expression, of especially if it's an expression of pure love and appreciation, it's silly. It's silly.
Yeah, Lao Tzu said that fear is the greatest illusion. It's so salient. You are literally in your home right now. You know, this is your home. This is our home. This is what we made as our creation to explore and to play and to get to know ourselves better. And to have fear when it's only all expressions of you is such an illusion. Yet there's also a strong tendency for us to, as we awaken, we recognize the power of the now. We recognize how the now is perfect. We recognize that everything happens in that now. We recognize...
And it's always right now. So I tell people when they are in a bad mood or they're sad about something, it's always right now, and it's always going to be right now. Right now. Like right now. And now.
Yeah, the Zen masters used to use to draw attention to the salience of the now, and that's one of the most, it almost has such a reverberation that it really shows how to have deep gratitude and love and appreciation for that which is this, that which is this, that which is this.
I love sound bowls to hear the echoing of that vibration. That sound is can be kind of jarring with us. If you ever hear of a sound bowl and it just keeps going into infinity, and if you meditate on it when you hit that bowl or when you're spinning it and you hear it vibrating, it's so beautiful to follow it, and then it feels like it's going inside of you. It's going in you.
Yeah. Those Tibetan singing bowls are very Omi. They're the Om. They're the underlying, as is said in the Dzogchen tradition, it's very much the Rigpa. It's very much the ground which is this void emanating all possible expression of form creatively, endlessly. Do you feel quite like an expression of infinity? Do you feel like you are that which creates this and that you are reflecting on your own?
On a good day.
On a good day, yeah.
But they're all good days. It takes practice to realize the awareness that they all have the ability to be good days, no matter what's happening on them, in them, for them. Yes, I have had in the past a struggle with expression, and it felt like there was weight, like being a human was walking through sand, I knew I was artistic. I knew I loved colors. I knew I loved music, and I knew I loved expressing myself when I'd allow that to happen. And it felt like for a while I was going through sand with a backpack of bricks on my back, whether it be holding on to a bad relationship, holding on to past traumas. Those things weighted the weightless and pure expression that always could come through. And I journal a lot, and I remember drawing a picture in my journal of me kind of cramped up, like sitting with like a little pen being like, when is she gonna let me out? I'm here too, and we can play. And like, she's not aware of me. She's just kind of running the machine and making the body move from place to place. And I remember breaking through that and what it felt like to take off those weights and to allow myself to just express and not constantly try to feel that it had to be a perfect expression. It didn't have to be perfect. It happening was part of the perfection.
Exactly.
And that was, it took a practice to get to that point. It's layers. It comes off those weights. I feel like it's a veil. I remember going to Mexico and seeing in the cenotes, they had the stalactites and the stalagmites, and they told us the story of how they grow. And it takes hundreds of thousands of years for these things to grow. And it starts off as just one light layer of a dusting on top of the water. And then years go by and it starts to calcify and build and build and build and build and build. And then you have this like wand of rock. And that's kind of like what I visualize that type of weight and layer being like compressing our expression, is that it might be one comment, that one negative look that someone gives you when you were in preschool about something. Like if you sang a song and just said blah, and maybe someone that a friend of yours or someone in the class looked at you funny, but we're too young to process what that means, or that it's just meaningless. They might have had gas or something. And so you take that in and might translate that as what I did wasn't good, or what I did isn't right, or it made someone uncomfortable. And you start to become almost too aware of the other, as opposed to, I feel like pure expression is you're in the awareness that you and the other are the same. Like we started off saying, that it's just me and you and me. Everything is us, is I. Mm-hmm. And that's how the pure expression, I feel like, ends up coming through, is when you start to say, you know what, I want to express myself. I appreciate expressing. I appreciate letting that out of me, no matter what it's gonna look like, sound like, feel like, because when it comes out, it's out, and then there's more that can come through. And there's good layers underneath, like the hardened weight layers. There's those layers of light, and such joy that could come out of your expression.
Yes. Almost as though the process of, in a sense, when you go in on those onion layers, they at first, when you have the formation of the egoic identity, that those feel like weights, like bricks in the backpack.
Yeah.
And then as you shed the layers, we peel those layers inward towards source. And then as we go outward, then we have love for form. We have love for our uniqueness, our firework, and they don't feel like bricks anymore.
Right.
They don't feel like weights.
You start loving that weirdness, where before when someone says you're weird, you would think that that's something that's upsetting. But when someone says you're weird, like, yeah, I'm so weird. Like, I'm the weirdest.
Yes. Massive.
You appreciate it and like it. Yeah.
Yep. And then I liked also the analogy that you were giving around the stalagmites, that you have these sort of, on a planetary level, you can think about it just like the billions of years of evolution that it took to get here. And as you saw in the Law of One video that we published around the 7 densities, it's basically like the martial arts belts. You know, it takes a while to get up in the evolutionary process to the point where there can be the secretion of the creatures in the dreamed creation, where they can reflect back on their own source, and then that they can undergo this process of distinguishing between egoic identity versus identity as infinity.
Yeah.
And then it becomes so fun, because it's like right now is so perfect, also because it's the height of the transparency in the levels of consciousness / awakening in people's beings is very visible.
Yes, I was just going to say something that came to mind is the idea of, it feels like ego is almost the inhale. It's like a tightening, and it's like, and then the source of us is the, like, feeling the source is expressing that exhale, but both are required for existence.
Yeah.
It's not that we have to shed an ego to the point where it's just source. It's that interplay. It's that yin yang.
Well,
it requires both.
To do it well, yes, it totally does. And to do it well, one goes all the way inward. You gotta go inward first to go outward right. Yeah, it's a sure cause of delight.
It's the best delight.
Yeah. You're so great. I'm so grateful for you.
God.
You care.
Just
you
looking
care.
into a mirror.
That's right. Yeah.
To be here is absolutely fantastic. It was not expected. I study a lot of the law of attraction, and on an everyday basis, I listen in to tune to being a positive place. And it's almost like I was looking for you for the whole channel, but I wasn't. It came naturally. Like, it was something that, just as a thought, like, I would love to hear someone say this type of energetic vibration in another way.
Yep.
For fun. Yep. Just like saying, here's a painting and here's another painting.
Yeah.
And you guys came up on my feed, and it was just like instant. And then that, to the comment, to the response, to the call, to the FaceTime, to the appointment here.
Boom.
Manifestation at its finest.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's probably the core of the seeking impulse, which is sort of in many ways seen as the truest thing about us, is kind of like the absolutes GPS callback. Bentinho Massaro calls it that. I really like that a lot. It's like, you know that what you're being called to is as Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Mira Alfasa say, they call it the well of honey that's located under the rock. And so that's the seeking impulse that has been roaring in me is that. And then it's just been, like you described, the constant seeing how it's being painted by Aurobindo, and then seeing how it's being painted by Rupert Spira and Muji and all these different teachers that are both modern, but also going back into the mystic traditions and seeing that many of them actually communicate archetypes, stories that teach so precisely you can't get past an archetype. You know, an archetype in essence means it's the most extreme example. You can't go any further than the extremeness of that example. So like the parable of the prodigal son, right? So you're looking at something that many people would refer to as, you know, some sort of ancient Abrahamic story that has no meaning anymore in life. But it is an archetype of the, as we gave in the visual, that very egoic, dense, sort of backpacked with bricks identity that goes out seeking peace and happiness in Maya, in the Sanskrit tradition, in this intoxicative illusion that then ends up turning backward after enough getting the poop beat out of them repeatedly, that then goes back to the father, and then the father is consciousness, it's awareness, it is infinity, it is source. And so you can't tell a story any more archetypally extreme than that. The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, that's taught with storytelling when you take a writing class or a storytelling class, because that's basically the plot that they say there's 7 basic plots of all of stories. It's man versus himself, and all of that. And the Hero with 1,000 Faces, I think, it spans across all religions. It's the hero's journey. Yep.
Where you get a call, you start off as like an ordinary person, you get a call, you deny the call, then you answer the call, and then you go on a quest, and then you learn things, discover things, and you come back a changed person, and you're enlightened.
Like, you literally can't go any
I love how it's like bullet
more
pointed.
archetypal than
like,
the
here's
hero's
your
journey.
religion, go start it.
It's so beautiful that this is the game. The whole point of the game is for us to do what these archetypal stories teach. You know, you do undergo, as much as we are already perfect, that's the non-dual understanding. There's nothing to seek. It's already perfect. Yet, in the dualism, there's also the recognition that we are absolutely on a trajectory of evolution and awakening in the densities of this dream. And Source is at a level of, right now, more than ever in this expression, a point of such reflective mirroring intensity that it makes it such an insanely cool playground to be at. So like your hero's journey has the ability to butterfly effect outward on the mimetic information technology scale to hit 4 or 5 billion people that have access to a device simultaneously.
Speaking of a device, the Oculus Quest, only a year or so ago, it's been recent that they became available, and it's wireless. You don't need sensors in the room for it. You don't need a huge computer to plug it into, and it's affordable. It's with the kind of phones we have, compared to that, it's very affordable. And so I experienced that a lot of people, like, VR was introduced to me by my brother who's into tech, and when he first put the goggles on, you're in another reality instantly, and to feel that and then take off the goggles and be like, wow, I'm still in this room, but then you can go to, like, this morning I was walking around, was it Machu Picchu?
Yeah.
And
That's cool. Yeah.
And the best is when people are, they always look up because we're used to screens in front of us, but this VR is all around us. It's all around. And I feel like that ability is really getting so, like, it's evolving so much that's going to give us a really, really neat experience.
It gives us huge insight into the nature of our reality.
Yeah, we're duplicating.
Yeah.
Literally, we're duplicating reality.
Yeah.
And then being able to experience it like that. If that's not time travel,
yeah,
I don't know what is. Once the graphics match with like how it feels to, like, see with our eyes, like with how tiny cameras are and how much they can perceive, how much light they can take in. It's going to be like, how are we going to tell the difference? And I like to talk about this simulation theory all the time. It's like, we are biological. We believe and perceive that we're biological. But with VR, they have, let's say, coming up with something like a pressure suit where it has, like, nodules.
The haptic feedbacks.
When you squeeze, like, if you had the suit on and I did, and I squeezed your arm in the virtual reality, like, you'd feel it. That's then using all the senses, visual, audio, like, if they could get smell somehow. Once you've got all the senses covered, how are you going to remember that you're even in the VR system if you're in it for long enough? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Yeah.
And I feel like we are in some kind of, like, the word is not the word I would use of virtual, but it's something like that. It's a projection of something that what we are is somewhere else, but also here because we're witnessing it.
Yeah, we talk about the metaverse a lot on the show. It's funny, you can go back like 30,000 years and you can see a cave painting and you can be like, technically that story happened like a year or two ago, and they're letting us know about how to handle the proper animal attacks or which places to go and hunt for food. And so it's interesting because now you look at a couple thousand years ago, the ability to then turn symbols on sheets of papyrus into something that's also passed down for 1,000 or more years. And so it's kind of like we've been doing this almost and not necessarily always recognizing the importance of it. Like right now, also with the technological devices that are so powerful that we have, it's funny thinking about how ungodly, incredibly, amazingly powerful they are and how much they've accelerated our ability to manipulate bits and symbols and share messages and ideas and execute and drive globalization and drive so much of basic needs being met on the planet and all these types of things. And like, typically when you're in the middle of it, we're not always fully aware of the profundity of it because it's just feels so fleeting. And so it's almost like a practice that has to be done in order to really have this childlike awe.
That's the presence. It's the presence of what was. We're constantly wrapped up in what was, or we're thinking about what could be and what is going to be, that it kind of robs us of what is, or nothing is, as Robert Anton Wilson said. He's careful to use the word is. What it's like here, just being here when we're lost or anxious or depressed. That's our minds and our focus and our awareness not here. That's somewhere else. Because if we were here, it would just like a kid. It's kind of not I wouldn't say ADD, because that's such like a hot word to make us think that something is wrong with that kind of thing. But
spontaneity,
the ability, I call it the cookie effect. The ability to, when I was a little girl, I lost my father. I'm 4 years old, and I go up to my mom and I say, "Where's where's daddy? I want daddy. I'm sad. And she says, he's not coming back. I'm sorry. And I say, okay, well, can I have a cookie? And here's a cookie. And okay, great. I'm going to continue and go play and be present and say, okay, well, I don't have this, but I have this. And it's just that constant calibration back to the moment, back to
what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we are.
Yeah.
And you said something before, like we've been doing this, like the evolutionary process, we've been doing this, but it's more like we are it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like doing us.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, we do ourselves with this. Totally. We are both perfect and perfecting. It's like a metaphysics of endless perfection. And that's like the coolest possible thing you could imagine is like sending yourself out for a 13.8 billion year evolutionary dreamed ascension, enlightenment, recognition of your true nature. You like veil yourself and then you're like, I don't know who I am. And then you're like, oh my God, I was this the whole time, type thing. And like, that's hella fun. And like, there's all the different ways that people find themselves and there's all the different ways that people express themselves. And so the finding is like the inward, like, oh, I found myself this way. And like the expressing yourself is the firework outward. And there's like nothing cooler than this game. And like what you described earlier was the metaverse, which we talk about a lot. It's like the synthesis of AGI and sort of bio and neurotechnology and
like the blending, it's happening, like the blending of the two, the
virtual
blending
worlds as well. And exactly when you get to a point where there's so many refracted, indistinguishable virtual worlds that you're kind of just exploring, that you've lost understanding of whether you're in one or not. And that's what this is. And so we're the publishers and the players. And that how many layers, how many nested parts are there? And just the way to answer that question is that at the end of the day, the way that the expression is happening is eternally in every direction, infinitely in every direction. You are it. And that's sort of the most shortest way of saying you can talk about all these layers, you can talk about all this nesting all you want, but you are it that has been doing this and that will keep doing this. Because sometimes we can get obsessed with whether we think that this one is nested in this specific way or if it's nested in that specific way or how many layers there are and all these questions. And the answers are always just endless. Like you are it, you are source, you are this that's currently happening. So just be that. You are what you seek. Be
enjoy
that.
yourself.
Enjoy it.
Even like the dramas and like all the entertainment. It really, we're just entertaining ourselves. And and Alan Watts says at the end of the day, Ram Dass said, we're all just walking ourselves home.
Yep.
We're all just walking ourselves home and
Yep.
watching a river of a reflection of us go by.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shakespeare said that the world's a stage,
Yep.
right? And all of us are actors and actresses. And Ram Dass is right, walking each other home. In the law of one, it's very much like the evolutionary ascent in this octave, just this endless reflecting. It's the reflecting of the mirrors through the Godhead, which refracts a whole new expressionary cycle in the next octave. So this is the third density right now that's evolving into the fourth density, which is very much like a martial arts belt that is like being a Stone Age primally driven cave person versus being a holding the Christ or the Buddha archetype 24/7. That's the next density. That's where you want to go. You want to be that. You want to do that all the time. That's you not in your natural state. That's like the natural state. And that in itself is very daunting for people because they're like, oh my God, you mean like I have to radiate bliss and peace?
Like I have to ascend?
Yeah. Suffering's
I have to be
coming.
joyful all the time?
It's the drill sergeant is coming whether we want it to or not. You may as well answer when it's a feather instead of a sledgehammer.
Mm-hmm.
You may as well, because it's going to come back if you don't. It's going to come back if you don't. It's the only force. In Sanskrit traditions, it's called Chit Agni or Chit Tapas. It's the consciousness fire, the consciousness energy, that force that is creating this ascension is the truest thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. It's always knocking.
Now, do you think that the concept of the Ouroboros, how
a
lot of us are on like all different. I don't know if you can zoom in.
Yeah. Here, I'll also bring it into the. Let's see how we can show things. Yeah.
I feel like our ascension is where we are on the part of the snake. Are we towards the head and the mouth, the thing that's chomping, or are we down the spine of it and towards the end, the thing being chomped?
That's a great. It's a great question. On this cycle, it's been talked about how
like the experience of what you're having.
We're basically there. Yeah, we're basically at the very end of this. The idea is that the kind of the last stage is the recognition of who we are. We're at that stage right now. And then if it's true that the metaverse, like what we're talking about regarding diving into all these indistinguishable virtual worlds, that's within 100 years.
You read my mind. Yeah. I was just going to say, what do you think and perceive as the time frame of when we're through to the next level?
Yeah, well, we're doing the inward and outward are happening at the same time. Like going outward into the cosmos is happening at the same time that we go inward into these worlds. Mm-hmm. And it'll be fun to kind of play between.
What are the I don't know how to word it, but manifestation, like what would be the, like, oh, this is happening now. Like when we said, oh, cell phones with FaceTime, our parents would say to us, that was only on Star Wars, when it was on movies, and they were just using their imaginations. When does imagination become reality? Like, when do you think that shift of the 100 years, like in 100 years, is it the flying cars that are self-driving, or is it that we have the Neuralink from Elon Musk and we're like cyborgs? Like, what is it personally that you think?
It's the moment when you can't tell the difference. Yeah, that's it. You were describing all of the sense perceptions, right? When those are fully accounted for. I mean, that's, in a sense, the Greeks called it anamnesia, right? You're trying to remember. And, like, you just got to remember yourself as the infinite creator that made this. And once you remember yourself as the infinite creator that made this, then you realize that you are the infinite creator that makes what's next.
It's like deja vu, like the concept of deja vu. Remembering, like, haven't we been here before?
Yes.
Haven't we been here?
Yeah.
Such a lovely feeling.
Well, because you know yourself. That's why. It's the comfort of getting to a place where you've recognized your nature to the point where you no longer even identify with the body itself, right? This is the key, is the neti, not this, not that approach to enlightenment and awakening, is recognizing that you have to decline all of the things that you're not. You have to negate all of the things that you're not in order to recognize what you are, and then you include on the way out everything. So you decline that I'm not the body, I'm not these thoughts, I'm not even the consciousness or awareness that is the sky for which these clouds appear. I am only the one infinite creator. I am only source endlessly expressing all of these creations. I am only that. That is my only truest essence. That is it. And then on the way out, now you can include all of these layers. It just kind of goes right back to the first thing we were talking about. The layers on the onion of form. Shayna Craig no longer thinks that it's a brick backpack because she's not trying to extract peace and happiness from the world, because she's bringing peace and happiness,
bringing it out from within.
From within, yeah, because you know yourself,
right?
And so that's when your form becomes like the firework rather than the burden or the over-identification with the body.
Yeah. Instead of the what am I supposed to do? What do I have to do? It's just in the moment to moment existence and being. It comes to you by you knowing yourself and you knowing that it's easy and you can allow it to come through you instead of doing it. Instead of you let it do you, like I was talking about before. You let it do you.
Yes. Yeah, fully surrender to that consciousness force that we're talking about.
It's fun to play because it's more playful than work.
It is.
Never wanted to ever be a 9-to-5er. I never wanted a job like that. And so I figured out, okay, well, I can entertain, so I'm going to start a company. And I did face painting, party entertainment, all kinds of fun things. That's fun. I started getting hired for events that usually people would pay to go do. I would get paid to do it. And so it was great at first, but then it started to be confused as, well, I play for my work. And so when am I actually playing? If I'm playing for work, like when you put a monetary value on it, does it become work? Or when you're not enjoying it, like the term work is like the negative way of saying playing, like focused playing or intentional playing. So doing that, like once you once you confuse the two of like work and play, like even just being can be work. Maintaining the body, you got to brush all the teeth and you got to brush the hair and put on clothes and shave or whatever it is to maintain the body. You got to drink and eat and all that stuff. That can become work too. And so if we see that and appreciate, like, wait, I have a body. Like there was a time that I didn't, when I was just observing, and the reason I came into existence was to be able to take care of this thing. Like why people become parents, they want to take care of this thing, and that's us. Like if we turn that back to ourselves, self-appreciation and self-love with something as simple as body maintenance. As a teenager, I would brush my hair and be like, oh, it's knotty, I gotta brush it as fast as I can. But then you take that and you can make that into a meditation where I actually am present with myself and say, I love my hair, I love whatever it is, and I love to take care of that. Like talking to that inner child the way that you would talk to your own child, or the way that you would talk to your loved one, your friend, your sister, your brother. That's the kind of self-talk that I had to develop, because at first it was rough. It was like it was all negative. How come you can't do this better? You don't get this right. You're not smart enough. And then you flip that into, this is easy. Everything's going to work out. It's all going to be okay. Because it always does, and it always is. On a long enough or short enough timeline, it works itself out, whether you plan it out or not. And if you just relax into that knowing, it becomes so pleasant to be with yourself, as if you're your own loved one.
Yes.
The feeling of being in love. Dr. Bruce Lipton, one of my favorite spiritual biologists, I guess he would call himself, wrote The Honeymoon Effect and the Biology of Belief. And the honeymoon effect, where the idea of like when you find a lover in someone else, and that feeling of even going to the grocery store, like, hey babe, can I get you some groceries? And you want to serve that. You want to, it gives you so much joy to give and to experience with them. that doesn't require, that feeling of the honeymoon effect doesn't require another person, nor does it have to end when you get used to the everyday things like, oh, okay, it's been years and now I got to go grocery shopping for this person. Like, why did I do this? And you start questioning it. So it's always like a delicate balance of bringing it back to the recognition that it's, like you said, coming all from within you, outward instead of outward in. Like, what's going to make me happy, or like, how can I make what's around me joyful? Because that then just reflects back, and what you give, you like, what you put out, you receive back, because it's you giving to yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
But just the whole identity thing, I think people have a hang up on, is identifying everything outside. Even this, everything can be broken down into atoms, and we're made of that. This mic is made of that. This chair is made of it. The fire, everything is just in a different form, but it's that infinity expressing itself in an infinite way. We express and get like the feedback of that, and it's just the best.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, knowing yourself is Satchitananda. It's existence, consciousness, bliss, truth, consciousness, bliss, because you really do see the endless bliss and peace that is the natural state of now, of your very timeless being. And it's something that requires subtlety to recognize, because it's always present, but we're very gross and physical and egoic, and that makes it more difficult to see. And I like also, as you're giving the example of the honeymoon effect, you really do want to treat yourself like you're taking good care of yourself.
Like you're in love with yourself.
You should be in absolute love with yourself. And that's what also a lot of people say is the sexiest thing about people, is not to a narcissistic extent, when it's all about self-dealing for an egoic entity, but when it's complete love for the same source that is shared among us all, and also when it's love for service to other, being in service to people at the absolute highest morality, where you basically get hella joy from serving other people. Like, at some point you get so good at knowing how to shut the fuck up and ask a good question and just shut up and let people talk and like listen to them intently, because you know that you're listening to yourself tell a story. How much harder does it, like, it's not that hard. Like, it's just, you once you kind of, you
so
get
easy.
that. Yeah.
It's so easy.
You're listening to yourself tell a story, and so you want to be present for yourself to tell that story. Now, another part of the Law of One teachings do have to do with recognizing what grace is and recognizing what wisdom is, and this sort of evolution from the fourth to the fifth density is understanding wisdom. Wisdom in itself is really difficult to figure out how to master like a Jedi, because you become like you want to serve everybody. You want a honeymoon effect love everywhere. And you can't do that, actually, because there are just certain levels of existence still for certain expressions of the source, where if you serve with love, that the vampiric egoic energy will drain and suck. And wisdom is knowing how to gracefully distance yourself from that.
Absolutely.
And so then that you kind of figure out how to balance love and wisdom, and then they merge into one in the sixth. And then in these octaves, you can see the idea of, once a civilization recognizes that they're here to explore themselves as one infinite creator, they basically begin accumulating like a shared consciousness, like a shared ledger of all of their awakenings and experiences. And then as they ascend to the point where the source light refracts again into the next exploration, you basically deposit all of the learnings of that civilizational exploration, pre-refraction, and then you go again.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you just see, you'll never get to the end of the Ouroboros of the source light refracting over and over and over again, because you'll never get to the end of all of the combinations that are possible. Even the mathematicians and logicians that are some of the greatest that have ever lived, like Kurt Gödel, you will never get to the end of all of the possible combinations of math, just like you'll never get to the end of all of the possible combinations of consciousness. You'll never get to the end of all phenomenology.
Or desire, of like your own desire too. I feel like people put a time on their accomplishments and what they're supposed to do as a human, and they'll never get it done. And so that's a nice idea, because then there's nothing to race to. There's nothing to rush to. Like, we're all in this rush, like we need to learn as much as we can and do as much as we can, and we have to catch up with technology because it's going so fast. And it's like, whoa. We can allow it to work with us and slow down enough. It's the parable of the tortoise and the hare. The hare runs so fast, and sure, maybe logically on some level, the hare's gonna go faster and get through, but it misses. Like, the tortoise is trucking along and the hare's running it around in circles thinking it's gonna win, and taunts it even. But then you realize it gets so tired it falls asleep, and the tortoise was consistent and just enjoying the ride. So what I always say is, it's a ride. Bill Hicks, the comedian, says it's just a ride. Don't get too invested when people try to say you got to take this seriously and you need to focus on this or do this. It becomes kind of it's kind of funny because they're taking it so seriously. Like, don't take anything too seriously. Literally anything. Nothing has to be serious. And like you said, there's a way of grace.
Yep.
There's one thing about making, like, being a clown or something like that, but there's a way of gracefully not taking it seriously. And that's, I think, the idea of wisdom.
Yeah. That was a analogy that is so deeply resonant with the indigenous traditions around the planet, which is basically like, you may think that you, as the younger brother that is engineering artificial general intelligence in a planetary race to who's going to make the dominating algorithms first, is the coolest possible thing, which younger brother loves to tinker, right? That's the story that they use. The older brother is constantly trying to remind the younger brother how to engineer and tinker and create in harmony with the planet that literally sustains the life. So if you don't know that the 20,000 inhalations that you take every single day are coming from the photosynthesis of the phytoplankton in the trees, you're not going to give a shit if the oceans acidify. You don't
or if
care.
They're cutting down the trees for what reason. And
so when you get to the level of feeling, you have 100,000 heartbeats every single day. You have 1,000 species of bacteria that are living inside of your gut microbiome that you have a symbiotic relationship with. Once you sort of get to the recognition of that style of unity, that drives a whole nother level of consciousness to where you no longer allow egoic manifestation, because you're constantly dissolving it in your peace and in your bliss and in your architectures that have so much inclusive stakeholding and goal congruence that there is no room for ego to enter into that. Like, if you have, we were talking about this a bit on the roof actually before we did the show.
I wish we could do the show from the roof.
From the roof, yeah.
One day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the A-frame roof with an interview trying to happen on it. That's hilarious. Yeah,
it would be a balancing act.
It's a balancing
that is life.
act. It's just life. Yep. Yeah, we were chatting a good amount about the smart contracts and decentralization and inclusive stakeholding and equity structures that basically incentivize the goal congruence on a planetary level, where you no longer have to, in a sense, worry even about egoic levels of consciousness trying to enter and manipulate. And that's why the most upstream thing that we're dealing with right now is really egoic consciousness, especially in positions of leadership around the planet. Yeah.
You're a mind. We're so connected, because I was just going to say the idea of like people talking about Trump and how he's apparently going to be running again for 2024. And it's just, it makes me laugh. I'm not really too worried about it. I feel like he actually helped people wake up and pay more attention. Just like the concept of COVID, it could be seen as something scary, but it could also be perceived as something that actually brought us more together, in the sense of like we had to physically separate, and that made us want to be together. I think it's a cool type of reset socially, where people are begging for places to open up again so that we can gather, when now we can appreciate each other being in even small groups way more than before. So there's always that silver lining that we can find, and that in like the ego structure and source, like it's always okay. It's always going to be okay.
Yeah. It's purposely here for the evolution, for the ascent. It's purposely here. The egoic levels of consciousness in the leadership around the planet, when you basically feel the most clear example is like high fructose corn syrup, right? There's absolutely no motherly love in high fructose corn syrup. It's almost like you're trying to get an IV of heroin into your child. Like, it's
the quality of the chemical, like, because the sugar is it's all chemical, it's all that kind of form, but the sugar, it's just the quality of form. It's like the idea of they take A, B, and C quality. You have an apple, you have applesauce, and you have an apple pie. And so the sugar in an apple is the most natural form. You pick it off the tree. It's got that most life in it. Like quality of consuming, I should say, not even with just food, but the quality of consuming. And that's kind of like social media too, with people being able to just put up anything, anytime. The quality of consuming, like the amount of consuming, it's more like quantity now. It's more focused on quantity. How much can we consume versus the quality of what we're consuming?
That's so
like
good.
The apple pie thing.
I did, because actually it's really salient, because in many ways especially here, when the apple is picked at the farm, it actually has the least ethylene, which is the stress hormone that comes from plants.
Or just like the cortisol in animals.
Just like the cortisol. Exactly. Yep, precisely. So just like the cortisol. And so this was a Jun Yoon, who is actually also the one that not only communicated the ethylene, the stress hormone, just like cortisol, like you were saying, but also the passing along of wisdoms like inclusive stakeholding, which is very beautiful because it plays perfectly with this. So you want to have a planetary architectures and protocols that maximize everybody's, hilarious enough, share of the pie, of the growing pie. Again, we're just crushing it with all these interwoven analogies.
Don't even have to try.
I know. Yeah, there's
just letting it
just
flow.
letting it happen.
Just letting it flow.
Which is one of my favorites. Let it happen. Let it happen.
Let it happen.
Let it happen.
Let it happen.
I'm forever, ever. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we have all of these great, it's just basically now we have to use memetics and music and stories and digital content to tell on a planetary level how to architect the protocols, because what's going to happen is that consciousness, the level of awakening, is mirrored in the protocols. of the planet. So basically, this is directly related to the egoic levels of consciousness versus enlightened levels of consciousness and where they're at in terms of the most powerful people on the planet. So there's a direct feedback loop between the planetary protocols and architectures and the level of consciousness. For example, you take 30 years ago, Silicon Valley deciding that, now we're going to have vested shares over cliffs, 1-year cliffs. So meaning that, you could get ownership at a company as an employee over every year you would earn 10, 20,000, whatever shares. And so because of that, you now have people that feel like they have a stake in the growing pie.
They're part of it.
They're part of it. And so we as a whole planet must figure out the proper tokenomics, smart contracts, architectures, given decentralization, cryptocurrencies, all of that's evolving, to make it so that all 8 billion of us have a equity stake in the planets, including the environment that actually sustains the life and nourishes it. So all of that needs to have its components. Like, you're not actually going to be happier. This is like, this is the thing. You still have people that think that they extract more from the
quantity.
Yeah, if I get more extraction of financial success in my dividends in ownership, rather than redistributing that to the people that have actually purchased the products or that have built the software or services that have made me able to even extract any dividend whatsoever, that I'm going to take that extra dividend and I'm going to purchase my 3rd or 4th boat or whatever, and that's going to make me happy because I'll be able to show off to other people that I have that luxury asset. So it's a level of consciousness that's still stuck in the parable of the rich fool, which was tried to be taught for thousands of years, of you don't want to actually create an extra barn for the storage of your excess resources. You would rather store that in the stomachs of your brothers and sisters.
The quality, just like the quality versus quantity. We want quality of what we're consuming across the board, in what we're watching with our eyes, all the senses, what we're taking into our senses, what we feel, what we eat, what we talk about and consume on every level, because everything is food at the end of the day. Everything is food, and it's quality over quantity. And I think that's what we have to, like, the whole wave of fast food and fast apps. There's nothing wrong with the convenience of an app being able to bring you something from store to your door. But when it loses the quality because the whole time issue, like, you want it this second, but then on the back end, if you get things too quick on the back end, you're going to end up with some kind of dis-ease of the mind or body, and then you're going to have to address that, and it's going to take time to heal yourself when you can be consistently well, like focus on wellness consistently throughout, and that comes down to the quality. So that you can, so that it takes an extra 20 or 30 minutes to prepare some kind of food item. In that 20 or 30 minutes, go take a walk outside, listen to some woke information, go hug your dog, anything that will keep yourself in that good state, so that by the time the thing does arrive, you're already there and you get the best of all. It's just synergy, and it's quantity, and it's all works hand in hand. The quality.
Yeah. That's why also Robert Pirsig had the metaphysics of quality in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, literally at the level of the nature of reality. And this is why, Josh Holland, who's one of our, close friends that's been on the show a bunch as well, the 5 pillars of awareness you really have at the top. You have quality awareness over everything else, because quality awareness leads you to quality sleep and recovery, quality consumption, which includes all the inputs.
The awareness gives purpose to all those things of why you should want it to be, why they should be quality. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. That's why he put that at the top. And that's why we talk about it a lot as people ask us more and more frequently now. They're like, how do I awaken to the nature of what I am faster? Well, you are what you seek, and you recognize that by becoming aware of awareness itself and what is the I and so many other aspects. But you really need quality awareness moment to moment. You have to become the master of that monkey mind, like has been taught for thousands of years in those mystic traditions. And you're right, boiling it down to quality and being able to sort of recognize that I can do something that actually brings me, like sunbathing, that brings me a little bit more calming down and more vitamin D, more nourishment of listening to those hummingbirds for 20 minutes rather than, clicking the button and getting the instant, there's times for both of those. But just to know that you have the option. So many people still don't feel like they know that they have the option to slow themselves down to the point where even the hummingbird and sunlight can give them awe and bliss and remembrance and connection to their own creation that is this. It's so critical. Quality, metaphysics of quality is such a critical one over the last 9 months for me has been massive. I'm glad that we really honed in on that, and you mentioned it several times also, was that really think about the inputs that are coming in, food, data, all inputs. And also in terms of your own outputs, something that was really crazy was like 2-3 weeks ago, I'm just sitting in a very sort of consistent state of void to infinity realization. And I'm like, I have all these, I have thousands of files that I want to stream, but I've even decided that, I only want to, maybe even do 100 or something of those, because I don't want to put too much even noise out. Right. And so, and even then I'm back at this 100 and I'm like, once you realize there's nothing to fucking say, there's just nothing to say anymore. You just
sounds.
It's just radiating bliss and peace and childlike awe. And you want to, of course, also do the tantric weaving of the realizations via entrepreneurship and art and all these other things, which is the natural course of the morality and the firework, to be in service like that with wisdom and love. But it's to the degree, can you become so sensitive to recognize that everything that you distribute outward is going to be consumed as an input by others. And so to, in a sense, only really feel into the quality of everything. And you have actually it's probably pretty, we could probably do some of our quality music
Our
and
quality vibrations.
our quality vibrations.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see here. We have, so Shayna's been, let's see, how many years now? Let's do a little bit of background on getting into the singing and songwriting.
So I've always been performing in one way or another on a stage since forever. Literally forever. There's like preschool, the whole preschool video thing of me. And you can see that I'm in my element. That that was my favorite form, was to just be like, look at me, and I don't even know if I have anything to say, but you could just look at me and hear me, and that would just be a lot of fun. And then I would do performing camps. So I was always, it's been since my mind could perceive and like understand expression, I guess.
Yeah.
I picked up music from, it was probably in like my teenage years. I was on a weird trajectory listening to the everyday like Usher and like Genuine because of the people that I was involved with in school. But then my brothers, both of my brothers were like, yo, there's a better way. Like, here's the Beatles, and like here's classical music, Bach and Chopin, and a lot more quality.
Yeah.
And there's not that there's not pop, like quality pop music, but that there's fundamentals. There's like fundamentals of quality that's when you can experience that helps you know what you really feel is the quality of the mainstream. And so then I was so in awe of my older brother. I wanted to be friends with all his friends. I want to be with him all the time. And he thought I was so annoying, which was cute. and then he would, we had to pick an instrument in school. So I picked violin. Then he wanted to do flute. I wanted to do flute. He wanted to do guitar. I wanted to play guitar. And he's such a great singer. And he ended up going to Berklee School of Music. And I didn't really enjoy the education system. I would say like going to attend college, like I wasn't 100% dedicated to just music. I was doing musical theater, singing, dancing, acting. I loved the whole gamut of the onstage performance and the film performance path. So to go study that in a serious setting, I felt like I just wanted to experience it. So then I kind of did a whole, well, I just want to go to New York City and go audition and go, act and sing and do whatever. Like I had no concept of what it meant. I love that sort of seeking impulse for the fireworks side of it, for the expressionary, entrepreneurial, artistic side of it. That's such a critical also component. It's like both the absolute GPS callback to source component, but also the same style GPS signal that's like, I don't know how I'm going to artistically, musically express myself, but I'm going to New York and I'm just going to like, that's I figured it was a place. I didn't know how to hone the skill. Because usually with acting and that kind of thing, you tend to have someone early in your life who is like a stage mom, or like the mom or the dad who brings you to the auditions, and then you start meeting agents, and that's how it grows. But my mom was like, I don't know. She was a nurse. I don't know how to do this for you. So like you could go pursue it, but good luck. And she was always super supportive no matter what I did. So I said, well, I don't want to go to school. I think that it's a game. I think that the education system is a game. And I think that life itself and experiencing life is an education. I would rather we would play the board game of life, and you have the option to just go play, or you can go to college and then you can pick from the stack of job cards that are like the better paying jobs. But then in the game of life, it's chance. So like I would end up around everybody else anyway who chose to wait the few steps to go to college. But my mom really was like, you need something that was, I guess, her background was like, you need a piece of paper, like you need a degree to show that you've studied and that you can do this. And so I said, okay, I'll go to the Fashion Institute of Technology. I ended up getting into because I love crafting. I love painting. I love drawing. I love making clothes and anything like that. So I went there because it wasn't going to put me in debt. I had an idea and I couldn't put it into a conversation at the time, but something made me feel just like the medication and pharmaceutical game when they try to diagnose you with something and put you on meds, that the college education at the time was some kind of game that I was like, I really don't want to be in debt forever if I'm not totally sure. Like what I want to do, I feel like a lot of the people that I want to be like didn't go through this. So I want to be like them. Like I don't want to go through it either. Education is important for sure, and it definitely works, and it's definitely valuable for others, but for myself it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the right path. But I went anyway, listening to my family, listening to my mom, and that's when I got super, super depressed because I felt like I wasn't being heard. I wasn't I would try to audition for the dance team, and they would have too many girls because it's it's a school filled with girls, and so I wouldn't make it. And so it's like, how am I expressing myself? I lost myself in my depressions. Like, it got to a point where I didn't even know how to seek. I didn't even know how to seek because I was so depressed that the second I would think, well, maybe I can try this. No, that's not gonna, it's going to take too much time. It's not going to work. And so I was just like logged. Like, I was just jammed. My expression was jammed, and I didn't want to be in school. It didn't excite me to try to work towards a degree. I wasn't trying to get it.
This is also a very important lesson to communicate around being more of a conscious parent, because it happens across our planet where we sort of, as the older consciousness, we instill some sort of in many ways fear into the younger consciousness that, if you don't get this sheet of paper, and it's not just that component,
or go down
to
this
it.
path.
Go down this path. It's the relentless sort of like beating over the head of like the creative expression out of the new portal of consciousness in. You let it firework itself, type situation. So parents specifically have they say that they do it with so much love, but it's always very much not recognized as also something that has a strong tendency to diminish the spark.
It's the communication that you have with your child, I think, because when you have a set idea of what something should look like and it's not looking like that, and then you start to want to interject and kind of not force it, but like coerce it and mold it, then it can get the communication can get lost.
Like, parents are trying to chisel you've seen the statue that chisels itself, right? Parents are trying to come in and chisel their own kid's statue. It's like, no, like the expression of infinity will chisel itself. Like, you have, of course, the role to play to the basic water, food, shelter, that type of stuff. But really, the buffet of options should be wide open and should basically be followed by the child's interest. The Montessori method, as Maria Montessori, popularized. That's the core, and it was even back 2,000 years ago. It's just something that is really important because I've also had I'm 28, and I still have family influences taking the firework and being like, no, it should be like this. It's like, come on.
Like, time's ticking. These things aren't happening, and biological things are happening. Okay.
All this type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the artistic expression almost got locked, and I think this is also interesting. It's like the
it was like a slingshot. It felt like a slingshot. It was being pulled, like where it was like it was there.
Oh whoa!
But then the trauma of my dad made me feel insecure, and I felt kind of lost from that. And then growing up and not really knowing where to put it, what to do, because I would be doing anything. I would be trying piano and all the things I stated before. So it was like slingshotting, where I was getting farther and farther away from my source and being able to channel that, and that those layers were being built up very strongly, where to the point where I didn't understand existence or wanted to. Like, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I was suicidal, and then when I was told I could take medication for it, that's when I wanted to turn it around. And I think I want to say I left. I just woke up one day and didn't want to feel that way anymore. I just didn't want to feel that weight anymore. So I said, I want to try to live the way that I see, and I'm not going to be listening to anyone else. And so I just signed myself out of school that day, started going around the city looking for work, got a bunch of different part-time jobs, doing all kinds of things. I worked at the Blue Note Jazz Club. Tried to surround myself. I got a job at a production company and tried to surround myself thinking apprenticeship was what I was after. I wanted to be put in a place that people were doing what I would like want to learn so that I can be there observing, just like we learn.
Yes.
You don't give a baby a manual on how to walk. It's there and it's seeing, or how to talk. Like it's there and it's seeing and observing and experiencing, and it starts to imitate sound and motion. And it's helpful when the parents like picking them up, and it's definitely plays a part is to be guided in a certain way, but not told like this is how this is done. And have flexibility. So once I did that, I felt more free and felt like I could express myself, and then ended up finding others, like a group of people out in New Jersey. So I moved from the city to New Jersey because there was more space to create, and you could have little like just like this, like a home studio, and then started getting ideas like there was a local television station that had an open studio, and I was like, oh, I could do something like Pee-wee's Playhouse and make a show for kids, because I was always in jobs that involved kids, babysitting or party entertainment, anything like that. And so my expression came out as I'm gonna make a show, and it came to me, I think one of my brother's songs called Room of 100 Doors. I got this idea. It was almost like a VR type idea where it's a multiverse thing where this girl is kind of lost and she's in the woods and she sees a box. And the idea is what is inside of a box, just a brown cardboard box. And a kid would see it as a spaceship or a house or a grocery cart. And with your imagination, like Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge. You could go beyond the chains of what reality is now to evolve it and bring about something new. So going into this box, the character in the show crawls in, and then out the other side is this magical room of like doors everywhere that it's like basically everything's made of cardboard and using sustainable. I was like, oh, it's going to be great, have a low budget, use sustainable resources, and show people through our production that we can like we don't really need that much of a budget if we have willpower and manpower and love and joy, and we are enjoying ourselves. And so I started creating like that, but then lost the space to sports and debates. They were like, oh, a new manager's in the studio and he needs to take the studio space for town sports stuff and debates. So I kind of felt rejected and had to figure out how to express myself again. But then in that process had met a mentor, Steve Weiss, the wonderful magician from New Jersey. He's a party entertainer that he had responded to an ad I put out to find creators for the show, but he kind of was like my right hand for the show. We just loved each other's company and loved how we created. So he said, okay, if you lost the studio space, like I want to show you how you can actually monetize and create shows for kids for parties and birthday parties and events. And he mentored me to do that. And so for 10 years after that, that's how my expression came out. I did face painting and balloon twisting and magic princesses and all these things for kids, and I loved it. And then COVID. But people were very creative with how they continued to do that with like drive-bys. Like I did singing telegrams, and so you could just drive by and like show up at people. Oh yeah, the singing telegrams are the best. To just be able to be ridiculous and see the expression of joy that people, or horror that people feel when they see you coming, because you have all these balloons or you're in this costume. I've never done the mascot costume though. Like people sometimes dress as like gorillas or bananas as a singing telegram, but I've done just like the Marilyn Monroe, like very voluptuous, like happy birthday singer, or like for a holiday party, I wrote a whole song about a lady that was turning 70, and she gave me all these facts about her, and she wanted me to like sing it to her friends, and I wrote a whole song about her for her and sang it to her event, like her party. And so that's it. There's endless ways, like you said, endless ways of expression. And then after COVID, it stopped everything, because there was a flow. I got onto a flow. When you express and you're just really in it, the world recognizes that, and then you become valuable to them because they want a part of what you're doing. And so I kept getting called, and it became seamless, where I didn't have to like advertise much. It just came to me. And then when that stopped because of COVID, I thought to myself, there's a way to refine my expression now, because I love children. I'm always going to love entertaining and talking with children. But it felt like there was something like burning in my soul to heighten or the quality of my entertainment. I wanted to heighten the quality of my entertainment and expression. So I decided to actually sit and focus and start writing a book about a whole other crazy experience. Like, I don't even, I have such a hard time to compartmentalize or to express like my life story. It would probably take me
a couple hours.
Not even hours
on the show
to write. Like, if I wrote a book about all the like, oh my God, experiences of my life.
We spent 2.5 hours just talking about
just
like a couple stories. Yeah. A couple of the salient stories. Yeah.
Stories that you'd go, what? Wow. So like those kinds of stories. So there's a 5-year period that,
however much you want to share. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a 5-year period that what I'm currently working on that, is so dear to my heart and such an important expression for me, because this story, I think as an expression, was the thing that was like kind of backlogging me. Like, this is something I wanted to do so long ago, but was too afraid to approach it because of the subject matter. It had to do with, my father had wrote a book in 1978, and it was called Off the Wall. It was written by Charles Wilford. He was a true crime writer in the 70s. My dad had an experience where in 1977, he ended up moving into an apartment below the son of Sam, who is an infamous serial killer in New York. And during the year, like, talk about timing and synergy of weird experiences, the year he was doing his killings, my dad moved into an apartment below him, and he took notice of my dad and tried to terrorize him and just focus on him too. And so my dad wrote a book about the experiences of helping like lead the police eventually to him, and then he was caught, and then people wanted to know what that experience was like, because David Berkowitz had all these writings on his apartment walls, and some of it had to do with my father. So as a child, I didn't understand what this book was that was written, because it was very sensationalized, very true crime, and it scared my teachers when I would try to do book reports on it as like an 8-year-old kid. So I was like, this is something that might have to be something I understand later in life. So I kind of put it away and focus on other things. But then it came out, it's like, you know what? Now is the time. I started writing to David Berkowitz because I wanted to know why, or what made him notice my dad downstairs in the apartment building. Was it something very surface, like, oh, they were the only 2 white dudes in the building? Was it that my dad was a sheriff and so he felt threatened? I wanted to just know these questions just for the sake of knowing. Talk about seeking, like, that was always, as a kid, like, why did this happen to my dad? But my dad wasn't around to ask. So I found this suitcase of all these articles and letters that my dad was trying to take this story and make it into a made-for-TV movie. And at the time, they didn't have series or Netflix streaming, so he was trying to make it into a movie or made-for-TV movie. And when I found all these papers and what my dad was trying to do to pursue the story, and he did it up till the day he died, he kept getting interviewed, news channels would call every year during the anniversary to ask him what had happened and interview him. That meant a lot to me. And I was like, you know what? I would like to carry that legacy and figure out what had happened with him. And that will working on this story will bring my dad closer to me and like keep his spirit alive. And I thought it was such a cool story that I then started reaching out to David Berkowitz, and he wrote me back. He started writing me back, and we wrote letters back and forth over a few years. And
just for those that would like to have a small recap. So your father moved into the apartment underneath of David the same year that David was killing 7 people.
Yes, he says he was possessed. He claims that he's possessed.
Yeah. And then 25 years later, ish. Shayna's writing.
It was like 30 years, because it's the 40th anniversary just happened in 2017. So it was more like around, I started writing to him a couple years before that. So it was like 30 something years.
30 something years later, Shayna writes, this is very much like a very fascinating way for Source to engage with itself, because you have basically an entire suite of people that are have the feeling of hatred and don't want to do this whatsoever. And then the sort of calling of in a sense it's forgiveness, but it's also interest and inquiry, and just to have the way that he'll feel while he's in prison to receive a letter from your father's
the daughter of him. And that's why I wanted to know the depths of it, because I also had the feeling that it might have been sensationalized. The story itself might have been sensationalized of like just the wrong place at the wrong time, and let's do something with it. And so I wanted to ask him, because he was one of the only people alive surrounding the case, what actually had happened. Because also there were people that were reaching out to me through Facebook saying, he didn't work alone. There's books. There's a book from Maury Terry called The Ultimate Evil that mentions your dad, and he did all this research that says he didn't work alone, that there's all this evidence that there's a conspiracy, that he was part of a group, that he was the one to take the fall, and nothing is provable. And I just became so curious and wanted to go to the source. That's really what it became. It's like I wanted to go to the source. And then people start to confuse it with like, well, why are you giving it the time of day? Why do you care what he thinks? What, like the idea of truth. It wasn't even about seeking the truth. It was just about seeing, like, I ended up then going to visit him. I sat with him, like, as close as we are now. There's no plexiglass. It's not like you make phone calls like that. It's just open space where 2 people are sitting and talking. Wow. And the vibration, like we were talking about vibration, it doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth as far as what word choice you're using. People receive an energy and a vibration, and that's what I wanted to know, what it felt like to sit with someone like that, because what I had discovered before I went to visit was that he became a born-again Christian and felt that he found source. He calls it Jesus, and he felt he found Jesus and became a man of God that wants to spread light. Yeah. And so in my mind, I saw it as like,
so crazy.
It's like alchemy, because he really was considered a model inmate. Like he was like a very sweet prisoner, where he didn't cause trouble. He did what he had to do. He always worked his job and appreciated it.
It's the alchemical pulls from murder to finding Jesus. Like, I don't know where the story comes from of enlightenment, where it says like, first man chops wood, carries water, then man finds enlightenment and chops wood and carries water. Yeah, I believe that's a Zen tradition.
So that's the kind of the way I saw him, was like, for the first 10 years he was in prison, he was in torment because he didn't know. Just like the first thing I wrote to him was, I'm very depressed. I'm the daughter of someone you once knew. I wanted to write to you because I wanted to understand why someone like you in your position would even wake up in the morning. What inspires you to want to keep living when you can kill yourself. You know you're never going to get out. You've been in there for so long. You have no concept of what's outside of those walls. How do you keep a smile on your face and then more so even want to help others who are in there to inspire them to want to live? And that's, I approached it where I was writing like I was that like of a young child, like with a childlike wonder of, I feel like I'm in prison in my own body. You're in double prison, where you're in prison with your, like where your soul is in your body and your body is in a structure that you can't leave. So like what is it? So that's really what I was seeking, was I was trying to go in and find the light of his soul, because he's still alive, like he's still a person that's alive. And there's the yin yang, there's always like a little darkness in the light and a little light in the darkness. So I was looking to be an alchemist and express the alchemy of taking a story that really scares people and then putting a twist on it that inspires them to see that, wow, if I could perceive something like that, then anything is possible. I started contacting even the people I met around pursuing the book. I talked to one of the victims, Carl De Niro, who's writing his own book about, he was shot but survived. He has a plate in his head, and his daughter went to Brooklyn Film School to make a movie about his experience of what he went through. So it's like, I call it shrapnel. All the people that reverberated through the experience of like this one nugget of a story, there's all these other stories that span out that have to do with this. Like, it's like a little energy tornado, and then all the things that are affected, like even it's like kind of raining out here, those are still stories to be told. Yeah, that's a really important visualization of how a experience, like you said, reverberates out and then makes another whole web of interrelated stories that are told, like so along with the 7 murders, there were 6 serious wounded, and one of them was the one with this Carl, and like there's like art made about that, and then there's art like you're making. 2 things. His daughter made a movie, he's writing a book, he's publishing a book, I have a book that's being published, and my dad had a book. So like there's all these, it's that's like really cool. Different perspectives around, it's a prism of perspectives around this main idea of the same story. And that's what I was always irked. Wow. I had to pursue it because every time, out of all the projects I wanted to pursue, like want to do music, but then COVID stopped being able to go out live and being able to meet. And so that's back burner. But then the book, you could write the story by yourself with minimal interaction. And I really wanted to give it the chance to get it out of me and out of my backlog, because that is the like OG thing that inspired me to be like, I want to perform because this happened, and it makes me want to talk about it. And I feel like that was worth pursuing, even if it's like such a strange topic, and like it's like the night sky. It's so dark, but there's stars that make it so beautiful if you just focus on the stars instead of the dark matter that's in the sky. Yeah, there's simultaneously the hot iron ball, like Bernardo Kastrup says, that is, coming creatively out, that, that must be shared, like with what you're discussing with the project. And yet at the same time, it's so strange. Like there's all the stories of kind of like the archetype of the child that had the experience of their parents' like successful business or some sort of traumatic scenario, which then is like carrying this torch or this baton to share. And like kind of, it's also balanced with like, is this really me? Is this really what I'm here to do? And so like, so kind of, and we talked a lot also in that 2.5 hours about like the whole
fuck it, ship it mentality.
Right.
Too.
That's what I just wanted to, like, it's always going to come around. This is just the perfect timing to get it out and express it. So that's what I did, and it will be coming soon.
Yeah, this is a nuts story. It's like one of, I don't know, like 2 like really nuts parts of your trajectory.
2 out of infinity.
Yeah, there's a lot of yeah. There's several components in the trajectory that were seen as treasures now on the other side of massive, traumas. So yeah, let's jump into some of the upcoming expressions musically. So you've been profoundly influenced by Ram Dass. Be Here Now.
Yeah, that book that is like they call it a bathroom read. It's the kind of book that you can literally just scroll it and open to any page and read that and just go think about that for a while. And you don't have, it's not like you have to read it and like put a bookmark in it. You can open it at any time, any point. The toilet read. Not in the quality. That's the complete opposite. It's so quality. But Be Here Now, I just loved that concept. And so I wrote a song that is percussive. It's a percussive song that I love to express and I love to perform.
All right, let's do this. I'm so excited for this.
Drink some water.
All right, and so it's percussive too. So
yeah, you could join along if you so choose to feel the rhythm coming through you while you listen to it. Let's see. So something like that. I hear music in the echo of this water falling down. And the day that you all hear it, I'll be gone from this here town. You won't find me in the city, you won't find me in the streets. Just look up to see me flying, or soaring anywhere I please, where I please, where I please. And you gotta listen for echo, echo, echo. And to hear that sound, you gotta be here now. I go dancing when I'm walking, 'cause this world can get me down. You should try it too, you'll feel it, from your feet up to your crown. People tell us that we're crazy, people tell us that we're mad, but mentally they're lazy, grasping anything they can, think they can, think they can. And you gotta listen for echo, echo, echo. And to hear that sound, you gotta be here now, be here now. I'm just here to say it's gonna be alright. If you feel me now, live your dreams and fight. If you're feeling this, you know exactly what to do. It's not up to me or up to him. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. And you gotta listen for echo, echo, echo. And to hear that sound, you gotta be here now, be here now, be here now, be here now, be here now. Always gotta give the kiss.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my faves. I really love it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to express that and for receiving it as clearly as you did before and do now. And I hope that everyone that heard it just now feels the quality of transmission, regardless of the perfection. That was pure expression in the moment, right here, right now.
Yeah. That's one of the mimetic vibes, especially via music, that I feel will be really catalytic on the awakening, because it's packaged together in such a rhythmically satisfying melodic way, and that makes people want to sing along.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of sing along is it's mission critical for getting the memes that are disseminated to stick and to become popular in the culture. And so you really produce something here that I'm excited to see how some of our awesome peeps here in LA will hopefully be able to help be catalytic. We'll see if...
Yeah, I'm excited for my tribe. I've always been looking to attract my tribe of creators to create with. Just like, because this book has been a practice of creating in a bubble of just the process of getting it out is just alone, being a sole writer. But being a musician, you can create. It's so much fun to express and align those vibrations with others, because it's like an amplification. Like all of our energies, when they're aligned, doing that same thing in that focused space, amplifies the message, amplifies the vibration, and it's affirmation. Like I love singing things that, if people are gonna have it stuck, like they call it earworms, if people are going to have those things stuck in their minds, have lyrics or words or expressions stuck in their minds, I would love for them to be positive and something that makes it feel good to say over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a straight up namaste, right? Straight up just bow to that beautiful divine firework expression. That was... adore it. I really hope, Zeb, Kyle, I really hope that some of our friends want to embark on producing this with you, because I adore it. And I think it just makes the love spread through not only your beautiful voice, but also the way that you put it together rhythmically is I think that's really the key. And it's sing along, that type of thing is going to be critical for disseminating music and other content that then catalyzes the largest scale butterfly effect of awakening. Yeah.
For sure. Thank you.
For sure.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm so jacked. That was just be here now, be here now.
That's like the dancing down the street. It's a good visual. Like I go dancing when I'm walking because this world can get me down. Whenever I'm feeling down, if you just start dancing, ooh, gives me life.
I totally agree with that vibe. Like, yeah,
you gotta go inward first to go outward.
Right, to sure cause a delight.
I love that.
Yeah, you're right though. It's like, can you trigger the dancey, free flowy state? Just walking on the street. Can you pick up a little bit of beat?
Yeah, some kind of the rhythm, listening for the rhythm of the street sounds, car honks, like the timing of that. If you're really aware, it's a good meditation. It's an active meditation. Yeah. Oftentimes you'll also have feedback and get like a communication back from your surroundings. It's almost like the awareness becomes aware of your awareness of it. And so, like, I'll give an example of something that happened yesterday. I was thinking a thought, and as I was thinking it, I look up and that moment, a billboard is the response. Like, I'm having a conversation. My awareness without words is having a conversation with the outward awareness, like looking at me or like focused upon me. And that is so it's magic. It just, it feels like magic. It's that feeling that you get when you watch a magician as a little kid. Like, you just can't figure out how. You kind of know that there's something to it, but you're like, what? Oh my God.
we are very much so in our own alchemistry, right? Our own little alchemical ascensionary firework. Yeah, and it's so cool that you can see it, mirroring, feedbacking all the time. But one has to get inward first to the point where they recognize themselves as that infinite creator, as that source that expresses all of the possible combinations. And then therefore the awareness no longer becomes something that's siloed and egoic, but it becomes something that's shared and eternal. And then everything from there flows harmonically. And a level of identity has become identified with your true nature and not with what is under the veil. Because the veil is what creates so much of the planetary disaster. It's likely the most upstream target of the planetary awakening is to dissolve as much ego as possible, especially in positions of leadership. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And music like that does it. Like, can you imagine, like we love like the UN or whatever, just like singing Be Here Now, right? Like at the General Assembly. Like I love stuff like that. And like, having a little, like also them like playing the drum circle, like, and collectively singing, and
absolutely.
Like how much more peace does that catalyze? How much less stress? All that type of stuff. I think that's the future that we envision as an enlightened
collective
dreamed planet.
Aware souls. Dream planet. Dream.
This is great. Okay, I think that's pretty solid. So eventually you'll also be embarking on your Joy on a Bus, which is very exciting.
That's so future talk. So yeah, we'll put a bookmark on the Joy on a Bus. That's the only job that I will ever have is Joy on a Bus. Is the idea between Love, Peace, and Paint, what I did, that was my company, Love, Peace, and Paint, for face painting, party entertainment. And then with what I express in the book about law of attraction and alchemy and all that, Job on a Bus is like the way to tour that and to be able to bring it from place to place. I always envision having like an RV. I don't know why. But I keep having this vision of traveling on an RV and then getting off the bus and setting up some kind of like mobile stage, fire dancing, and people and just having an attraction to gather people so that when we draw them in, they ask what we're doing and ask what it is. And our joy from our bus, the Joy on a Bus, we have websites or information to share with them to show them that there's other ways of being. Like being a traveler, you don't have to be fixed into one place. There's ways of tapping into your own collective to be able to travel from state to state or country to country when everything opens. So yeah, that's just future stuff. Is the job Joy on a Bus.
This phenomenon became so much more popular. I love it. There's like more and more people that
like
sort of
tiny homes, and like yurts, and
And I specifically love how you have the focus on bringing the joy on the bus, because you're not just a traveler on the road, but there's now more and more people that are sort of putting together their own unique combination of what they think joy on a bus is and bringing that out to like setting up stages like you were describing and having festivities and music that's really exciting, because it's probably one of the cool archetypes of what it's like to commune with your true nature and then literally bring joy, not just on a one-person level, but bring joy on a bus.
Yeah, well, Ken
level.
Kesey, that's where I think I got the idea from a long time ago, is that Ken Kesey, and I think he called it Ken Kesey and the Band of Merrymakers. It would just be a bunch of people that got on the bus. It was the hippie culture in the 60s when they started dosing people with acid, and they would go from town to town painting the bus. Like, all of these people would get off the bus, they'd paint it up, they'd paint themselves, and people would wonder what they're doing and be like, oh, you're hippies. But they would bring awareness to something that was happening, that was growing, that was changing. And then they would just get back on and go to the next town and do that. And he wrote the One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey, and a bunch of other cool, electric Kool-Aid, acid Kool-Aid, something like that. But such a concept to have your little community traveling with you, and I saw that as something that was valuable and very a good way of expressing and sharing information. Like, even with the internet, it's still like it's sure we could make a bunch of websites
it's
and
like
try to
mobile in-person joy.
When you see something like that driving down the street, you kind of
joy
want to know what it is.
Where are they going? How to go commune with some joy from a bus? That'd be funny. Yeah, it'd be playful. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's playing music and bubbles, colors, anything that's
so
attracting the light, attracting that kind of thing.
You got me at bubbles. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Also, you singing. Yeah.
Yay.
That'd be so good. Yeah, paint, all that cool stuff.
Colors, infinite expressions.
Yeah, exactly. Blank canvases and color. Yeah, for sure. This is very much making sure that the Pablo Picasso childlike awe is retained throughout your adolescence and adulthood, so that you don't become a corporate zombie in a straitjacket.
Mm-hmm. And don't fear or worry. That's the key thing. Is what helped me express was to work on letting go and releasing the fear of what it looks like, how it sounds, if it's perfect. And Dr. Seuss, my favorite quote is, "Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." So it feels so joyous to be able to connect with yourself without that doubt and that fear and that worry that something is off with that. If you feel connected to yourself, then go express.
Yeah, there's nothing sexier than the courage to be exactly the unique expression firework of infinity. The youest
you can be.
Yeah, the youest you can be. Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. What a great way to wrap. Be the youest you can be. I love that.
Because was it the law of one? There's only one you.
Yeah.
There's only one you.
Yep.
So be it.
Yep. Amen. Perfect.
Yay!
I love it. Yay! Ouroboros.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
I feel like we need to dance like a dance track. We need an outro of boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka boom.
You know, we actually used to have a intro and outro music from our first 500 or so episodes, and so we may bring that back once we have some of sort of something that we like. We might produce our own little DJ track that kind of incorporates those. Remember, we were singing "Let It Happen," forever, ever. Yeah. We might just grab a bunch of different stuff that we like across and put it all together into, because there's a lot of good ones that already sort of exist across different popular music as their choruses, and to know how to stitch them together in a way that's exciting. Yeah.
Well, then I have a lot of toys, a lot of musical toys to bring next time, like looper pedals and things that sing and it loops, and then we can add layers to it.
I love that. Yeah, we'll play with that. That's a great idea.
Yay, music production.
Yay. Yeah, and as Francis Lucille says, eternal fireworks. Contemplate that.
Thank you so much for having me here.
You're so welcome.
Appreciate it beyond words, beyond time, beyond quality, beyond value, beyond any expression of that I could communicate with my words. I really appreciate being here. It's magical.
We reflect back that gratitude for this beautiful, divine synchronization. Yeah, those 2.5 hours before we even did the show, that was like some of the longest, like, powwow, pre-show powwow we ever have. So that was also a good indicator. It's like, there's just so much beauty to unpack. So that was so fun. Awesome, everyone. Shayna Craig, you can find her links in the bio below. Her YouTube profile, go and check that out. Also her Instagram and her website, go and check those links out. And be on the lookout for the book, also for the music drops. And let us know how you feel about the conversation in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a comment. If the video brought you value, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Share the video with other people that you think would find it exciting and useful. And that is all. Much love.
That's it for our show. So we must go.
Yeah.